I think the Story Shop is just phenomenal, really, because they've got the opportunity to ask you things. You know, in a newspaper article, it's kind of cut and dry. They read the article and they might have some issues and they might want to know more. So I think it gives people an opportunity to kind of really, really get into depth of why did you do that and how did you find it? How did you feel about it? So I just think it's phenomenal.
We opened 1 October at the library in the centre of Nottingham. And it was quite good, and then we've been to Derby and spoke at Derby College, and each one's different.
I feel like I give hope, very positive. I feel very passionate about it, and I feel I am giving back to society and also hopefully making a difference to people's lives. By saying one little thing can make a big difference.
I think it's crucial, really. Things like the Story Shop, I think they're good at educating people who otherwise wouldn't have known what different varieties of mental conditions can be.
It's the first time that I've told a little bit about my story, and obviously focus it on the recovery side of things. So far it seems to be going well, getting used to it. The message is slowly getting out there and helps me with my recovery, and so I can help me move forward.
I found it at the start it was really the repercussions you have to be prepared for, because when it comes back at you, when you're talking about your experience of being poorly, and I got a lot of things like physical punches and stuff happening. But the more I tell it, the less that happens. So it just gets better and better.
A bit overwhelming sometimes. It all depends who's in front of me. Because you're kind of remembering the past.
So I've grown up with it, and you don't talk about it. And we went through a stage where stigma and things, and brushed it under the carpet and pretended it didn't happen. So to actually go and talk about it, it does you good, because it gets it out and it makes other people understand and aware, and socially a bit more accepted.
When you do tell your story, it does bring up the sad and the bad points that you've experienced in your life, and it's nice to give an insight to youngsters about mental health.
I was particularly pleased we were going to young people, because they didn't have as much preconception, I don't think, by the way they looked and the way they asked their questions. And I felt you could reach an audience there.
Well, I wasn't expecting to be able to have a one-to-one chat with all the people. I was expecting to be sat in the lecture theatre with them talking at us, telling us stories, but it was good that we got to have the one-to-one, so we could really ask questions if we wanted to know more.
I didn't expect them to be as open as they were and give as much detail. I thought it would be quite obviously a touchy subject, so they might not want to talk about it a lot, but they're really open and talked about the goals.
If you've got an illness, it shouldn't really be a negative thing. I wanted to demystify illness to the students that we went and saw at the Story Shop, and kind of explain that if you get diagnosed and you get a prognosis that isn't very positive, it doesn't have to be a negative experience.
Well, it was really interesting because we don't really get to meet anyone with any mental health issues, because we hear about it a lot, and especially from doing psychology, but it's different actually talking to someone who's experienced it.
I was quite expecting the people that we spoke to be quite reserved and not really share as much as they did. Yeah, it was quite hard. There were quite a few times where I thought I was actually going to cry, at some of the things they were saying, yeah. They were all really quite hard hitting to listen to, but I think there was different key points from each story that were quite emotional.
They listened and they wanted to know a lot about mental health. And I found that quite daunting to do it, because it was my first time. And then, but once I did it, I got quite a buzz out of doing it, because I felt like I was educating some of the youngsters who were very, I was very privileged to do it.
And I felt it was quite a privilege to go out and speak to young students and also student nurses at places like QMC, because they are very interested in listening to life experiences. And sometimes it also helps them to decide which way they want to go when they finish their training, because some are interested in being involved with mental health and some are not quite sure. So for us to go and have a story shop at QMC, I think is quite important and can help lead them on the right pathway.
So it's giving them experience and to remember they've always got to listen to the service user and the patient.
So I wanted to make it sound as positive as possible and say to them, just because people have got a diagnosis, it doesn't mean their life's over. You know, you can still work with things and make the best of it. And really the secret is that if you get any illness, you've got to look at it in a positive light. Otherwise it will be a negative experience and you won't be able to pull yourself out of that.
It's a bit more intimidating being face to face with someone who's been diagnosed with a mental illness, because you don't know how to act around them, whether something's going to trigger something you say is going to be wrong. But sitting in front of these people and talking to them, it just makes me realise that they're just normal people and there's no need to be prejudiced. It's just something they have to deal with and they can live a normal life.
It's weird that it can have such devastating effects, especially because it's something you can't see. With physical illness, you can see when something's wrong.
Out of the people that we spoke to, they're quite like open about it, and they actually not like to talk about it, but like knowing that they have the support. So I think I definitely approach it differently now, knowing what I know.
I'm quite proud to be part of that. And it's something that I can say I've done for the positive.
It just changes your attitude towards anyone with mental health, because it can happen to anyone, and even if you don't experience it yourself, someone you know might experience it.
I'd definitely recommend for people to listen to other people who are actually suffering with it, because you can actually understand. It's really eye-opening.
We hope it tries to help the stigma, because that's one of our main aims. The more people that hear the stories, I think it will help to alleviate it a little bit more as time goes on. And what I get out of it is that I'm happy to give some feedback and help people learn what mental health is all about.